like,
There's a lot of things. Sometimes we'll get things for his birthday, and we just take them like straight back to the store.
Yeah.
Because most stores will exchange without receipts.
Yeah.
We'll buy like diapers or
Something useful.
Yeah.
Today is a Unity Day. Like, I live in a small house, you know? Too much of a percentage of the volume is just clothes. Clothes.
At least when you know you're like gonna be all like we know this is gonna be our last, so we're prepared that once she moves out of the size, everything is going to either the next person for hand-me-downs or getting sold or given away or however we can get rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah, not so for us.
Eventually you'll get there.
Yeah, we'll see. So we were working on this this example project of a demonstration of inheritance. We were working on creating a base enemy class from which multiple different types of enemies will inherit, and we want to get something like that working in Unity, right? So we will continue on from where we left off in the last class, which means please go and find the announcement where I posted the code. I will also find the announcement. So, I attached two CS files, enemy and enemy script. We have to do a small amount of work to reconstitute our Unity project, but you know, we were doing a 3D one, and I kind of think a 2D one would be better, so let's just change it completely, do a 2D project instead of a 3D project. It will illustrate the point better. So, select a new 2D project, call it Space Invaders. There we go. So while that's loading, let's take a look inside of our inside of the zip file and see what is going on in these files. So in our enemy script, in our enemy.cs file, we have two methods we were working on: take damage and fire bullet. These are both things that the enemy should be able to do. We have a number of variables attached to the class. A prefab, which contains the prefab, a reference to the prefab that should be instantiated when the object is drawn. We have game object instance, which is, actually, I forget. We'll see if we still need it. Bullet, which is a prefab for the bullet that the little space ghoulies will shoot. And public integer hit points so that hit points might be decreased and the thing shall eventually die. So we were working on the take damage method. It makes sense that hit points should be decreased when the thing takes damage. So this is a system where every hit takes 1 hit point. However, I ask you this. Oh, I see what we were using instance for. So instance is the instance of the prefab once instantiated. Prefab is a reference to the asset in the asset name. So, should we kill the instance every time it takes damage? What is the condition for enemy dying? HP is equal to 0, yes. Although, just to be on the safe side, I often say if Catwalks is on, if HP is less than or equal to 0. So the reason you might do something like that is, what if in a future iteration of the game you make it so that you can take more than 1 damage at once? This code would break in that case. You might end up with a monster with negative 37 damage, but it still doesn't kill it, right? Or a negative 37 hit points. So let's pop a little if statement right in there. And let's give it a draw method as well. So in order to draw an enemy on the screen, we need a couple of pieces of information. First, we need a reference to the game object we are instantiating. Fortunately, we already have that in prefab. Second, what might we need to put something on the screen?
Sorry, I'm a little confused as to what the prefab. What is that short for?
Prefabricated object. So, is Unity up yet? So, you can add game objects to the assets pane, right? Unity calls these prefabs. It's like, okay, I'm going to store a copy of this game object. It's not actually in the game, but I'm going to keep a copy so that I can produce copies of it, right? So you can think of this pane a little bit like the glass top on a photocopier, right? Make sense? So, we won't worry about that just yet, but good question. So, we need some way for this enemy to be able to bring itself into existence. If you can take it out, you should be able to bring it in. So, public void draw. Oh. So, we want to instantiate the prefab. Instantiate. Ooh, I hate you so much. Where is it again? It's search. What do they call it? Autocomplete. Assist. Instantiate. IntelliCode. So, recall the instantiate method. Instantiate is a method provided to us by the monobehavior class. So in order to have access to it, we will need to have this class inherit from monobehavior. That's okay, we can do that. Just like that. Oh, you know what? I think the problem is, this isn't actually linked to the Unity project. So, let me just save that. Let's just pull it in, and then we'll keep having more fun. There we go. In we go. Project Space Invaders, here we go, that's a bit better. Monobehavior, of course, has a capital B. There we go. That's better. So instantiate takes a game object, clones it, and returns a reference to the clone. So the original will be prefab. The reference to the clone will be instance. Instance. There we go. Now, this is fine insofar as it goes, but perhaps we want to control the position at which this enemy is created. Perhaps we wish to give it some properties. If we did it this way, we would end up with 50 gazillion enemies, all being created in the same spot on canvas, which is of course useless. So, let us make an argument to the draw method of type vector3, call it POS for position. Here we go. Now, once we have drawn our instance, we wish to assign to its transform. Instance dot transform instance dot trans. Oh, I thought I killed you. There we go. It's the zombie autocomplete. Transform dot position is equal to the past value of POS. Is this making sense so far? So on line 12, we create the new game object. On line 13, we assign its value, the value of its position to the past value of its position. This allows us to control where we pop them in. Okay? So far so good. Any questions? Nope? Okay. So, let's not worry about firing bullets at the moment. Let's just see if that much will work. So, in order to create a enemy instance, we need an enemy prefab. So let's make one of those. Go out onto the internet and find yourself a nice picture of a space alien that we will use to blast. Personally, I like to use a website called opengameart.org. Because all of it is royalty-free. Search. maybe like a type of thing. Space aliens. Sort of. This will do. Except it kind of looks like they've got a background on it. That's not good. Well, maybe we'll. Let's see. Let's see what this actually looks like. Oh yeah, that'll work. So we've got a number of space aliens. That'll do. So let me show you how in Unity we can split up a sprite sheet. Does everybody have their image? So, drag and drop your image into the assets pane. You'll get a little arrow here that does basically nothing. We must take this. So this is what's called a sprite sheet. Sprite sheets are composed of multiple different images. Normally, they form an animation if played in succession. A sort of classic example of a sprite sheet would be something like our good old friend Mega Man. So you can see that like Mega Man has like a running animation, various jumping animations. All of these are, all of these are played at different points by the game engine to give the illusion of movement on the part of the character. That is animation, right? In our case, we're not doing anything so complicated. We just want to extract a couple of images from the sprite sheet. So, number one, set texture type as, actually sprite 2D is correct. Set sprite mode to multiple, right there. Set sprite mode to multiple. By the way, if you pulled just a single image off of the internet for your Google search, then don't worry about any of this. Multiple, apply, sprite editor. There we go. You can pull that in there. So you see how it's like a little fuzzy? This is because by default, Unity does filtering on images to smooth the edges. You can turn that off by setting filter mode to point no filter, apply. You can see it crisps up your pixel art quite nicely. There we go. So, we now wish to grab one of these enemy sprites by slicing. Let's see if automatic does well. It did pretty well. I'm pretty satisfied with that. So, slicing automatic takes all of the images that you see on the game, or on the sprite sheet. Draws boxes around what it thinks are continuous sections, and that's how it splits it up into sprite sheets. If you then click apply, you will see that your drop down here, you now have all of these different individual images available to be picked. Sound good? How many people are lost?
Just missed that last.
Slice, automatic, click slice, apply, apply, and then apply up here. It's grayed out. And then you should see all of your options down here for image sub-images within there. The sprite editor button right here. So, what should we go with, gang, for our enemy? Do you want this thing that looks like a fly, squid, skull squid, green thing, space crab, thing that looks like it's wearing a backpack, or enemy ship, question mark? What do you think we should do? No, I think we'll leave those where they are, but that's a good thought. What alien do you want, guys? The third one? This guy? Yeah, because he looks scary. Sounds good. So, once you have dealt with your image in the appropriate fashion, all you need to do to create a game object with that image is to click and drag it onto the scene. Now you'll notice that they are very, like in my case, they're very small. If you find that yours is a bit small, this option here, pixels per unit, allows you to scale the image relative to Unity's environment. So these are intended to be like 16 bits, I think. 16 bits across. So if I make pixels per unit 16 and apply, you can see I get a reasonable size. Here we go. Looking good. Question? Oh, that's a different apply. That's the apply that sets those. If you put that little arrow there. Oh, but if I may, set filter mode to point and crisp subpoints. Because if you're going to make something with pixel art, it should look as crunchy as possible. So, so far so good. We are well on our way. Now, we actually don't need to make any further modifications to the enemy at this point. We don't have to worry about setting up physics properties or colliders or anything. Let's just see if we can get a row of these guys to print using the script. So, in order to create a game prefab, a prefab object, from a game object that you have in the scene, it's very simple. Click and drag your game from the hierarchy view into the assets pane. That creates a prefab. In Unity, the symbol for prefab is the little blue cube. Okay? So far, so good? Cool. Click apply. Yep. And then if you click this arrow, you can drag it across. There you go. Ah, don't do that. No. Modify it. Certainly. Yeah. Sorry, pardon me. Oh, I see the problem. So the problem is that these things have backgrounds on them, and that's interfering. So let's just, and also, so in that case, case, you can do grid by cell count. How many do you have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12. So we have 12 columns, 1 row. There you go. Nice. And then you put this little arrow here. There you go.
I'll start.
I am recording. So. How you guys? I was kind of hoping that someone would do spacecraft. But we'll do that for one of the different types. Because I do like spacecraft. I think he's cute. How are you doing back here? So, I think what you need to keep in mind about spreadsheets is the background of the image will show up in the title here. So we need something that's transparent.
So if you like hit it and then just adjust the scale. So I put 6
So,
scale. X, Y, and Z, otherwise I don't
and what kind of thing do you want?
I guess there is no C, it's like
That's
Yeah, I think it doesn't have a Z, technically it does. I'm too sure.
look at that perhaps. Yeah. No trouble. Doing okay? Okay. So. Oh. So you go to download one of these guys, probably that one. I'm not sure which file that's in, but just download all of them. Put them into your assets folder in Udemy, and I'll show you how to split this right. Cool. And how are you doing with it? Okay. You're pretty close. Hold up there. Yes. And the reason is it's set to sprite mode single. And let's put that to exit stuff. So one filter, line, slice, automatic, slice. See what we get? Uh-oh. See, the problem is this is on a black background. If you Google like PNG remove color and add transparency, like there are like online tools you can throw this in and get it and take the black out. I recommend doing that. Or pick a different spray. Okay. So, shall we continue? So, our alien is now a prefab, which means we can now populate the enemy instances with this prefab. Right? Now, in order to do that, we need the enemy class to be able to receive input from the thing that creates the instance of this class. That's right, folks, we need a constructor. So let's write a constructor for the enemy class. Public enemy. There we go. Public enemy number 1. Ha 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 ha. In the braces, we insert the thing that we're going to instantiate the prefab with. So that is of type game object. The, let's call it fab, because it's fabulous. Assign the incoming parameter to our prefab variable. This means that when we create an object of type enemy, we must provide a prefab to a game object that will be instantiated when we choose to create that game enemy. So, this is different from drawing. It's useful perhaps to separate these functions because maybe like there are certain enemy types where like you kill them but then they come back, right? If you destroy the instance but you haven't destroyed the enemy, you could do something like set a timeout where it recreates itself. That's one way you might want to like separate draw from constructor, but that's okay. For now, this will do. So now we come to the need for something that creates and contains all of these instances of the enemy class. This will be a game controller object with a game controller script. So let's make a new object in our object hierarchy. Call it game controller. There we go. We want to add a component to it. Call it control script. You could also call it game controller. That also works. There we go. And here we are. So the enemy class that we have written so far is not intended for direct connection to a game object. It is intended to keep track of details about enemies. Our control script is intended to be attached to a live game component. You could also think of this as the spawner, right? But it's going to do more than just spawn enemies. It's going to, perhaps reset the level when all of the enemies are destroyed, stuff like that. So, when we start up the game, we wish to create a certain number of enemies. Let's create an enemy array baddies. Or we could go Sonic the Hedgehog and call them badniks. It's kind of classic Sonic the Hedgehog. This is a new script, yes. A new script on a new game object. So, we must populate the array. Badniks is equal to new enemy array. How many enemies should we have? What do you think? 10? 50? Whoa. Very different numbers. We'll split the difference and say 30. There we go. So we have an array of 30 enemies.
So 30
that again, please?
Is that 31 with zeros in there as well?
Oh, no, see, this is the size of the array, right? So the maximum index in this array will be 29. The numbers, like the numbers of the indexes will range from 0 to 29, but that is 30 items, so this is a 30 item array. Excellent question, though, thank you. So, we now need to create our enemies. So, let's write a little for loop. Int I is equal to 0. I is less than. Ooh, I really want to make that external value. I'm going to have to. Int number of, just call it number. Set default value 30. Did you know you can do that? You can use variables in there. So, we can actually make this public and configure the number of enemies on the screen. I'm going to make everything public for now. So, for each element of the Badniks array, we wish to create a new enemy object from the enemy class that we have been working on. Like so. Badniks at I are equal to new enemy providing a constructor. Now, interestingly, this is a syntax error. If we highlight the syntax, if we hover over the syntax error, there is no argument given that corresponds to the required parameter fab of enemy.enemy game object. Question?
No, is it because of the brackets?
Well, the brackets are expecting a value that we're not providing, right? If we come back to the definition of enemy, you'll notice enemy was declared requiring a game object. That game object is the prefab that we're going to be hooking up, right? So, I haven't provided it, so it's a syntax error. So, we must provide it. Public enemy, public game object type A, maybe make types A, B, and C. There we go. We'll start out with just type A. So let's provide enemy type A. All of our enemies will be of the same type right now. And let's draw them at the same time. So Badniks at I dot draw. We are then required to provide a vector 3, new vector 3. And we have to do a little bit of math, just a touch. So let's say if this is our unity plane, this is x is 0, this is y is 0, then let's say we wanted our enemies to appear in a row of 10 along the top, and however many enemies we had, we wanted a new row for each set of 10 enemies. Sound good? So basically, we have to keep a couple of secondary variables. These will be floats. Float x. Let's say our initial value will be 0.5, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, negative 4.5. Our float y position will be by default positive 4. See if that works. F. Thank you. So, we now have to trigger certain behavior in these x and y values, which will be used to populate the positions of the game object, based on what the value of I is. So let's throw x, y, and 0 in there just for now. So we have a number going from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and so on. So the question is, first question, when do we start a new row? Looking at these numbers, right? Do you notice a pattern? Something mathematical we could use to determine when we start a new row. Or in this case it's columns, but you know what I'm talking about. Let me see if someone else can get it. What property is common to these numbers?
Is it the 0?
Yes, they all have a 0 in the ones place value, which means they are all divisible by 10. That's right. So when this occurs, mod 10 is equal to 0. So that is our trigger condition for starting a new row. Sound good? So if I mod 10 is equal to 0, we want to do something with x and y to modify them. When we start a new row, our x position should return to the original x position, right? So x will be equal to negative 4.5f, which is the original position given here. If you wanted to, you could parameterize it, but let's just leave it hard-coded for now. What happens to y when you change rows? Sorry, I'll scroll that up for you. Yes? Go down by 1 is the correct answer. Give the man a prize. Okay, this is going to be fun now. All right. I'm going to throw candy at you. So, that is correct. Y decreases by a value of 1. So, very good. Also, every time you draw anything, you want to shift x over by 1, right? In this case, it will be increasing. So, x plus equals 1. There you go. So, everybody got that down? Shall we see the effect? Shall we run the code? Let me fix my syntax error. So, going to the game controller, you'll notice we have a few new properties, type A, type B, and type C. Let's click and drag our prefab for our enemy into type A. Now, let's zoom out if you're zoomed in. Delete this guy. He doesn't need to be there anymore. We have a copy of him in our assets pane, so we do not require him any longer in the object hierarchy. And let's click play. Dun, da, 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 dun, 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 dun. Look at all those enemies. Hooray! So you can see we've got lots and lots of them. Anybody, you need to change your scale?
Yeah.
I don't see the type B.
Let me see your code. Oh, go back to Unity. Click on this name object is your. Oh, I think it's just last. Yeah, you need to save it. Those guys are like most of the screen. There you go.
Change my scale to 6. And it looks a lot better.
Do it.
16.
You click on that, and then you modify it. You have a fold. You have a fold. Good. Good. You got it working? Oh, it looks like you made a 3D project instead of a 2D project. It's okay. It's okay because the way that Unity works, basically, like you just you is like if you view it like dead on, it would hit forward. Like if you just lock the camera in position to like facing it, that's basically how Unity simulates 2D anyways. So, yeah. Okay. So far so good. Telling me I'm doing something that's not allowed.
Not allowed.
I think yours turned out.
See if that works.
You just gotta like over the original one you put on the screen. Put it on.
Okay, so it's got a class for this. Yes. A class you can derive from if you want to create objects that So rather than mono behavior, change this to scriptable object.
That's
And Unity's warnings go away.
That was in the control script or the enemy script?
That's in the enemy script. Previously, we had mono behavior here. Change it to scriptable object. Because Unity is being persnickety as usual. Oh. Okay, scriptable object obedience. Oh wait, that's not. Sorry. Give me a moment to debug these. It's not going to let me use instantiate inside the enemy class. That's okay. All that move. No. Don't worry about following these changes. I'm going to post the code to an announcement. So, Unity didn't like that I was using instantiate inside of the non-game object, so I had to remove it. So basically now I'm creating the instance inside of the control script here on line 26. I'm then saving the returned object reference to temp and then passing that in, and I modified the enemy script so that it takes an instance of the game object, and prefab is basically not used anymore, unfortunately. So, there we go. Good. So, let me send you this code.
Starting a new topic after you send out the code, or are we still working on this?
We're still working on this.
We have 5 minutes.
Yeah, okay. 5 minutes, yeah. Be quick. There we go. The code has been posted to the announcements feed, so you can pick it up there. If anybody else needs to use the washroom, now would be the appropriate time. No, I've never understood why regular trips are so popular. No.
My 6-year-old goes nuts for them.
Like, are people really into that? It's the flavor of potato that much?
I think it's the Greek smart style. I like them.
Yeah.
They're just coated in bubbles.
Fair enough. Can you tell we're learning how to make a video game? I'm gonna get Cheetos dust on my keyboard. Maybe I should go down to the coffee machine, get a can of Mountain Dew. pause the camera or anything. So literally, the last like minute, it's just been me and me on YouTube eating a bag of Cheetos. So,
You can edit that later. Probably won't, but you could, if you really want to.
take that for your meme compilations. Which you definitely can't find by digging around a little bit on the YouTube channel. If anybody else wants more candy, please be my guest. So, we have type A, B, and C enemies, slots for them, but we don't actually have prefabs. So, let's make a couple more. And then we'll do it so that we can generate like 3 different rows of different enemies. So I like the crab. I know you're using the crab. I'm going to use the crab too. There we go. Space crab. And then I think this guy's kind of creepy. Still do? Oh, wait, no, you're right. One of the enemies should be like, wow. So, pull them in, make them into prefabs. There we go. Go to our game controller. Slot those prefabs into types B and C. There you go. It still won't do anything because we aren't using type A, B, or C inside the code. But if we can change that. We can change it. We already have a section of an if statement which activates when we switch from one row to another. So this would be the easiest way, in my view, to do this. We have a new temporary variable, game object, equals enemy type, enemy type, initially equal to type A. Here we go. Sorry. Do you need a hand? Sorry, are you okay? Yeah. Sorry, it's a little loud in this room because of the stupid fan, so. We can drop something a little interesting in here. If enemy type is equal to our enemy type, I don't know if I can do a quality comparison over entire enemy types. enemy type is equal to 0. When we increase our row, we increase enemy type. Plus plus. Then we still declare game object temp out here, but instantiate will slip that inside the little switch case. Switch enemy type mod 3. In the case where that is 0, that's type A. Temp is equal to type instantiate type A. Great. Case 1. This is the same thing. Only difference is type B. Copy that whole thing. Do. Case 2. Type C. There you go. And then wants a default. So it's a little dumb. Even though there's no way for it not to be one of those cases, it's still going to complain that there's no way. So basically, the compiler, it doesn't matter, like, we all know that if you take mod 3 of an integer, you will always get 0, 1, or 2, and you will get no other options. But the compiler is stupid. It doesn't do those calculations, not at this stage. So it's like, you have an option where nothing is returned from this, and this thing is unassigned, therefore this is a problem. Throw in the default, and it will never get executed, but it'll make the compiler happy. So there you go. So now, if we execute, there you have it. We have our enemies. So, anybody need any help with that? No, I might. it is.
Oh,
Woo-hoo. That makes sense, right?
Yeah, no trouble. Cool.
I guess, but what's the, okay.
Oh, that's probably the one you made the prefabs from that you didn't delete. If you press unplay, it really
Yeah.
strange.
Like it was like something.
Oh, that is your control square. You're making one of them at the same point as your control square. Possibly more than one.
Yes.
You doing okay? Let me see. Ah. Ah.
Probably something in your script, not in your game itself.
Yeah, it'll be in the script. Amazing. I don't know. So, now we have enemies, right? What we want to do now is we want to have different enemies do different things based on an inheritance structure. The whole point of this demo was to eventually work our way up to integrating inheritance into this. So, let's imagine we have a system of enemies. Let's say we have an A-type enemy which does nothing. It just sits there and absorbs one hit. One hit, no shooting. Let's imagine we have a B-type enemy that shoots a bullet. And let's imagine we have a, it's a little silly. Do you mind if it's a little silly? All right. Let's say our C-type enemies spin. They just spin. So, here we go. So the basic enemies will be of, like, just of the basic enemy class. Let's imagine that our type, type B enemies, these are our enemies which shoot a bullet, right? So, I'm going to take this bit, I'm going to copy it into each of the cases, because this is going to, well, I think move should be fine. Move will be the same no matter what, so far anyway. There we go. But now we are going to instantiate different classes depending on which type of enemy we have. So, in the case of type B, we will not instantiate the enemy class, we will instantiate the shooter class. Now it's going to complain because we haven't made a shooter class. So let's do that. So you are allowed to use a variable of a superclass on an object of a type of the subclass. So our shooter class will inherit from enemy. An enemy variable can hold a shooter, but not the other way around. So let's create a new C# script. Call it shooter. There we go. Open her up. Here we go. It will not be mono behavior. It will not use this stuff. Here we go. There we go. So, shooter, the class, shall inherit from enemy. The purpose of the shooter class, oh, yes. So an instance of the shooter class, a shooter object, will pick up all of the properties of an enemy. HP, instance, all the rest of them. At the moment, the red underline I'm getting is it's complaining that it's trying to call the enemy constructor, but that requires an argument that has not been provided. So we have to do that. Public shooter game object instance. Forget what it is. Is it super? I have to look it up. Base. Base as in base class. There we go. Okay, that's more of a C++ way of doing it. Okay, so the way that you pass information to the base class constructor, you put a colon, you use the base keyword, and you give it the value. Oh, and you'll need to have using Unity Engine, I think, which contains the definition of the game object. There we go. Yes. Good. So, class constructors provide information to the class upon creation. When you have a class inheriting another class, that class's constructor still needs information. It still needs to be satisfied. So, the way that you pass the information that it needs to the constructor of the base class is using the base keyword, and then you simply pass whatever of the arguments you want along to the base class constructor. Sound good? So, now that we are no longer in syntax error purgatory, let us create it a bit, let's put some flesh on these bones. So, in the enemy script, we had the idea that enemies would fire a bullet, but of course that, as often happens in software development, that's no longer the case. That's not what we want. We want the ability to fire a bullet to be placed inside of our class. So, our shooter class, because only shooters should shoot things. So, what are some parameters that a shooter might need to be able to fire bullets? What do we need to know about that?
Might be a game object for the bullet itself.
Yes, we'll need a game object for the bullet itself. Very good. Or at least we'll need a reference to one. So, game object bullet prefab even. And of course that should be attached to class. Let's just call it bullet. We might even go the further mile of just like creating one at this point. Pick something out of your spreadsheet that looks roughly bullet shaped. I'm going to use each of those look like a bullet to me, but I'm going to use POW because that's kind of funny. So what's a thing that's true about bullets? Physics? They move. Yes. So let's if you double click on the on a prefab, it'll bring up a little prefab editor, which lets you focus in on that object. So let's add a tasty little script here, call it bullet script. There we go. There we go. And basically, the bullet should have a speed, right? Public float speed. And every clock cycle we want to move the bullet down by X amount, right? The speed amount. So this dot transform dot position is equal to new vector 3 containing Well, actually, why don't we just say minus equals 3. Zero speed 0. There we go. So now, very simply, in our scene, we say yes. Got it. About bullet script. Add components, script, bullet. Why is it not understood? Very strange. Right. It's not going to let me go any further until I fix this syntax error. So it wants a bullet prefab. Okay, we'll give it one. Public game object bullet. There we go. This is in control script, by the way. Bullet. There we go. And so it goes in our project. Here we go. Add components. Bullet script. There we go. Make the speed non-zero. There we go. And you can test the speed by pulling that thing on, letting it play, and yeah, that's probably about fine. For our purposes anyway. It should probably give it smaller than that though. It's a bullet. Let's make it 0.2 by 0.2. That's about bullet size.
I like it graph. Where is it spawned from?
So it's not, it's just on the screen.
So it'll just come from wherever it is.
Yeah. It's, we don't have any script that spawns it in at the moment. So, there we go. That's good. Actually, we should modify the scale here in the prefab. There we go. So, going back to our shooter script. Yes.
We don't have the bullet script in 2 seconds.
Yes.
That's what they do.
Welcome. Good staff. So, So, are you okay with it now? So, the thing that we should do now, we should cause the bullet to be fired, which ultimately is something we can't do from inside this class structure. We need to send something to the enemy script to tell it to do it, because something inheriting from monobehavior must be the thing to call instantiate, and we will need to instantiate. So fire bullet, we'll need a copy of our instance, so let's save it. Game object instance is instance. Well, actually, we should be able to just pull that from the base class, can't we? Base dot instance dot get component enemy script dot fire bullet. Now it's going to complain that enemy script does not yet have a fire method, which is true. So the next thing we should do is add one. So far so good. So, enemy script, there we go. Public void fire. What? No. Just fire, thank you. Taking game object bullet. We want to instantiate the bullet at the point the enemy is located. So, game object temp is equal to instantiate bullet temp dot transform dot position is equal to this dot transform dot position. So then, our shooter objects can fire bullets, right? The only thing now is to put something into the control script which actually fires the bullet. Remember, the control script owns the copy of the shooter class, so it owns the copy of the bullet and everything else. So, we'll have to do something with time this time. Normally, typically, you do something like randomized here. But, you know, yeah, let's do it that way. So, let's say int counter is equal to 0. Counter plus plus if counter is greater than. What should our timeout between bullets be in seconds? Or in frames? How many bullets do you want per frame? 2 per frame? Then 30 seconds. Counter from a random int. Now, it would be super duper convenient to have an array of only our shooter enemies. So, I think we'll make one of those. Public shooter array shooters. Here, although we create the reference and assign it to badniks, we will also assign a copy of that to the shooters array. Cast it as a shooter. We will, of course, need to know the size of shooter. Let's just, for the moment, assume shooter's size is 10. Shooter array of size 10. This is technically not true. If we had more than, if we had to introduce additional lines, it would basically alternate A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C. If we had more than one B row, we would have more than 10 shooters, but so it goes. So, we need to generate a random number between 0 and 9. Random dot range between 0 and, let's say, yes, 9. We will want to mathf dot round that, round to int. That way, we get an integer out of it. We'll assign that to a value I. It is the position I in the array that we are selecting to fire the bullet. So, shooters at I dot, what was the method called again? Fire bullet. There we go. Now let's see how things are shaping up. Ah, well, it can't instantiate anything if it has no game object. Boop. There we go. Oh, I think I know what I'm doing. So inside the shooter class, bullet is coming out as being null. So bullets, bullets. Oh, means, you mean like your keyboard's been in overwrite mode this whole time?
Yeah, yeah. It's great.
Well, if you learn nothing else from this class, I'm glad you learned that. Oof. Oh, I know what it is. The enemies don't have any scripts attached. The enemy script isn't actually attached to the enemies. That'll do it. That's where the null reference is coming from. There we go. So, did you know that you can attach multiple components to multiple different things by highlighting all of them and just clicking add component, and it does it to every blessed one of them. So let's try her again, shall we? Oh! Dun, da, 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 dun. Now, I might be inclined to say that this bullet pattern is a little thick. Also, if you'll notice, we have a bit of a problem. This guy's never firing. We can fix that. I just pulled a muscle. You guys are health students, right? Can you come fix me? You're supposed to stretch it, right? Okay. Normally I don't try to engage in the low politics, but like, first of all, is he still alive? And second of all, who on earth cares who he thinks the president should be?
Other
You know?
people who are a million years old.
This is a man who became famous for doing a British accent badly.
I've never heard of him.
Oh, he was like the chimney sweep in Mary Poppins.
He was like your grandma's celebrity crush.
Yeah. He had like a sitcom in like the 1810s. Get out of my face, news. I don't care about the news. Nobody should be caring about the news today. Just avoid the news and everything will be fine. Just don't care. That's what you need to do. You need to transcend it. Don't get caught up. Don't get involved. Just transcend, rise above. Let them have their little thing down to the south. Just don't care about it. That's my advice. It doesn't affect your life.
I just hope people are safe. As possible.
So basically,
How did you say you got, what script did you attach to what?
So basically, these guys are little dingy boppers. They didn't have the enemy script actually attached to them. So when the fire bullet method was looking for it, it couldn't find it, and that's why that was giving us a null reference exception. Yeah. Oh, you got like yeah. Just click, hold shift.
Yeah, I do that, but this guy's not.
Oh. Oh. Okay, hold control. Then you can click those ones.
That's important.
All right. I mean, yeah. So yeah, let's fix that little error quickly. So in control script, we generate between 0 and none. Try generating between 0 and 10. And hopefully we don't get any array access violations. Ahoy! And there you go. Yeah. That was one of our famous off by one errors.
Those ones, too small.
Nope.
That's right, but this is kind of simple.
Yep.
Maybe,
That would be a useful thing, wouldn't it? We can throw that in quickly.
maybe the why my aliens have ears on them?
They have ears on them.
Just on this side. Is it making a noise?
You got the art.
What? But not on this side, like not where you see the game.
Is there a noise?
Oh, let me see this now. Is that like an audio listener? Like
So reactive.
animator message listener. Yeah, you've added some weird component.
Maybe when I went to add my, weird.
Yeah, your
Right, I'll just
aliens
delete-
have ears
I'll just
on.
remove that component.
This,
Okay. So, on the subject of, okay, so we can fix that quickly. That's actually a very quick fix. If you go to the bullet script, you just say something like, if this dot transform dot position dot y, not positon, position dot y is less than -10, destroy this dot game object. Easy. Easy peasy. And now you can avoid Stack Overflow, which is nice.
this might have been the hardest.
And also, on the subject of bullets shooting, or things shooting themselves as bullets, there's a game for that, which you may have heard of. But, do I have sound? No? Good. It's better not have a stupid intro. There we go. Here's a game called Enter the Gungeon, where like everything is a bullet, including the bullets, which is kind of funny.
But your brother was telling
Yeah. I've heard it's good, but I don't really like roguelikes, so. Alright. That's class. Ta-da! I'll zip this thing up and shove it into the announcements feed for all of you to retrieve at a later point. Thank you very much for your time and attention. If anybody wants any more candy, there's still lots.